How's it going, guys? So today's video, we're going to talk about the oil pan and the process I went through the oil pan, trying to make one myself using two pans, and then the Milodon pan, how I helped Milodon design and what I went through designing the new pan for the actual four-wheel drive, not the two-wheel drive versions, but the four-wheel drive versions for the 02 Durango Dakota models. So let's get into this video. Okay, guys, I'm back with the Dakota Hemi swap. So this is a 5.9 Hemi out of a 2009 Ram 1500. And so the oil pan is a rear sump on, you can't see it up there, but I need to be able to clear rack and pinion and the diff. Right now the diff is dropped, so that I had to get the pan out. But the stock pan, the Ram pan, I had cut up. Okay, so I had cut up this pan because I knew I wasn't going to use this pan because I was going to try to get another one. So I cut this one up and I had it in there and I mocked everything up. Again, review on them. I got the motor mounts mocked up off the stock motor mount set up. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the Ram oil pan here, and now I'm going to trim it around here, all the way around. This is where the diff is, and there's about that much space for the front diff. Okay, and now I cut this one off of the Durango. It had a 5.9 360 Magnum. Okay, so I cut this one off of the Durango. Okay, so they sit different because the center of the crank is different. See, here's the Durango. See how the crank kind of goes through here, right? And then on the Hemis, right, the crank is up inside here. So the depth of the pan is different how it relates to the car. So what I did is I cut this off, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably cut here. Okay, and after I trim this part off, I'm going to try to stick this part, which was originally in there with the front diff. I'm going to try to stick this part onto here with the right depth and use the oil pan that way. So what I'll do is I'll end up getting it welded after I get it fitted. So let me go ahead and cut this off and see if I can get it to work. Now this is the first time doing something. But one thing I do want to tell you guys is Milodon has a Dakota Durango oil pan, but the dimensions on the sump this way were like 7.5 inches. Okay, if it was 7.5 inches on the sump, it would hit right into the diff, on the axle part of the diff, not the actual fat part. So it wouldn't have worked. So I'm not sure why they said that, or or maybe it would have worked. But at the same time, it's almost $400, and I didn't want to pay for it, put it on, and it didn't work. So because the numbers, like from here to here, it's got to be 6 inches, right? So if you look at this depth, I had to cut. So this is the side where it's It's just the axle part going through right here. So this is the back of the 5.7 Ram oil pan. When I had it up in there, there was literally a finger gap between this and the axle. Okay, so and this right here is, I'll show you real quick, is 5 inches. Okay, so this cannot be 7 inches. If this was 7 inches depth right there, that would hit the front axle and the diff. And so for that reason, like, I just didn't feel like it was going to work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna marry that pan with this pan, and hopefully it'll work. Now the dipstick for this, for the 5.7, goes in through the block, and hopefully it will read the same, but we'll have to test that when that time comes. Maybe just get a different dipstick or something. But for right now, I'm gonna finish cutting this part off here, and cutting this part off, sorry, and seeing if I can get this part here from here back, but it from this part here back from the Durango 5.9 to get onto the Rams here, from here to probably somewhere about here is when it'll meet up. So what I did is I ended up trimming more off than I wanted, right? So as you can see, this top one is the Hemi, and this came off the 5.9 Magnum. So what I'm trying to do is just get some type of template made, so I'm able to stick this back on under the car there. And when I do that, then I can figure out if it's going to fit. Do I need to like adjust it, you know, slide it up and down like this, slide it up and down to adjust the height. And then when I do that, I'll go ahead and make my lines. And then so when I take it to a shop, I'll ask them, can they make something that's designed like this? Because it didn't fit the way I thought it would. So because as you see right here, these kind of loop, right? Which kind of creates spaces and gaps, and that's too much for them to fill in. So they're just going, I'm gonna have to get something built. It's gonna butt up to this. And so hopefully this stuff right here, like when it was in the Durango first, this right here clears the diff and the axle and power steering rack. Okay, and then we got here, if we can actually go down with the whole pan a little further, probably have about another, from this to the cross member, there's about 6 inches. So even if we can go down like 2 or 3 inches, we'll be able to hold a little bit more oil. So that's kind of what my plan is to get, you know, shift this. I can also shift it a little this way and a little that way if I needed to. So it'll allow me to get it in there, shift it, mark all my marks, and then take it to somewhere and see if they can actually make a pan in this same design. So there you go. To be continued. The thing about these things is they're hard to get in just because the diff and all that stuff. So I had to jack this up. So now what I'm gonna do is try to test fit this in and see. Screech. Okay, let's stop. So at this point I realized that it's not gonna work out, too expensive to fab it up. I decided that I'm gonna take the risk with the Milodon pan and go ahead and order it and see how that works. Okay, so this fin here, it was cut. I cut it and there's like a lip. So what I did is I just cut this piece off here. like that. Cut it off, took a grinder, just rounded it. So now I know I've got plenty of space. This was hitting, but I don't see, I don't want to grind down any more of these fins. So the motor can sit in a little bit lower, so everything's more like this instead of tipped, so that this doesn't have to tip, the pan doesn't have to kind of do this and bang against this, because there's not tons of clearance. So that's the goal. I'm going to take these off, I'm going to reconnect the diff back to the mounts, and then I'm going to take the motor mounts off the engine so that we don't have any interference with this when we set it down low, because you might have to set the motor down really low, bolt it up, then bring it back up a little bit and get the mounts. Okay, so this is the Milodon pan. So I'm not sure why mine doesn't fit like other people's, but I have mine sitting down pretty low. If I was to raise the nose of this engine up to where the bottom of this sits the top of this fin, I mean, the engine would be sitting at like a 14 degrees. So I'm not sure. I mean, it sits pretty forward, right? I mean, if Milodon was just to see, if you see here, take that right there, about a 1/4 inch this way, or here, and even probably at the minimum right here at this line, and just cornered it off, flattened it like they did, you know, here, right? But they go all the way, but if they go all the way up to the top like that, you would clear this diff. You'd probably would have to go to this line here to clear the furthest point out from the diff. If they're just to notch that, you know, you'd probably lose a quart or so. But if you see so much room over here on this side, I can't see, so hopefully you guys, let's see, here we go. So if you were to add on this side, like, you know, 1/2 inch this way, you know, depth on this, just about, it doesn't even have to be, it could just be like a little pocket, about a 1/2 inch, you know? It doesn't have to go all the way up to, you know, like right below the dipstick. You can go 1/2 inch, boom, and that'll probably make up something similar for this, right? The further I go, see, right now, and it also hits on the top. I don't know if I can't see the camera, but right here where my finger is, see, it also hits on the top on this fin too, right? Which kind of sucks. And I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but man, you know, and I know I still got to connect the diff to that, but you know, I can't even raise this, tilt this diff up because everything's in the way. But I mean, the people that I've seen have not had to cut that many fins or trim them. So I don't know if these diffs are different from different models, but it doesn't seem like they are. All right, so if you can see it kind of still sits right there on the fin, if you can see it right there. And this right now is just a little bit above. This Milodon pan, I had to take it out. Okay, I'm not sure why my vehicle was having such a problem. It's not even the motor mounts, because I can't even get them close. The engine lined up just enough right enough to even make a new set of motor mounts if that was the case. It's just this whole chunk right here, as you can see, is just hitting the housing of the differential. I mean, I already cut the blades out. This is hitting the housing, and then at a 7-degree tilt of the engine, it's hitting on top of the blades of the diff. Let me show you where the top part is there. It's hitting right on top of here. Okay. You know, and so making a relief cut, like notching that corner, will help. Notching this corner probably about a 1/2 inch back will probably give it some space. I don't know, I could even, maybe, I don't know about going a full inch, but yeah. So let me show you on the diff. Okay, so where this corner is hitting on the diff, and I butchered this up, and I'm going to, after I get this done, I'm going to get a new set. See, look, it's still hitting like right here. You can see all the scratches. It's still hitting. That nose is still hitting here. And see, I have everything mocked up. Nothing's changed. This is stock tranny bell housing, stock diff, stock everything except for the motor. Okay, and some people that I see just have to notch this a little bit. They must have their motor sitting super high, you know. So that's, I'm just not gonna do that. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go to You Pull It. I'm gonna get another one, and I figure this cutting out 2.5 inches is going to be plenty of space, because I'm coming out, the notch is going to start here and here, and that'll be cut back like this. So that should give it enough space, give the axle enough room to be able to move during driving, four-wheeling, you know, those types of things. And see, I have a 2.5 mark. So this is 2 inches back from the corner to here, and this is 3 inches back from the corner to here. So if I go 2.5 this way, 2.5 this way, that puts me at two inches. So let's see, make sure I wrote that right. I was upside down. Yeah, so yeah, so that gives it about 2 inches or so. See, and I go 2.5. Yeah, about 2.5 there, 2.5 there. Gives me enough space. And so what I'll do is I'll cut this cut here, and then I'll take from wherever this is, I'll take it to here, and then I'll just cut this across. Yeah, and then I'll cut this back a 1/2 inch this way, and then a 1/2 inch down, and that'll put like one of these little notch out like that. They made this on the passenger side, which I'm assuming it's supposed to, be for this notch out, for this, right? But that notch sits so low that I don't know if they designed this to where the pan is supposed to sit like up here, but man, that puts the angle, like literally when I measure the angle of the engine, that puts it like 12-13 degrees. That's crazy. So it just, I don't like it. So they said that if I cut it at Milodon, if they said if I can cut it, they'll patch it up. The only thing I can think of it's different is I know these come with different transmissions. Oops. And mine's a 46 RE, and I'm not sure if the bell housing is deeper, so it comes forward more. I can't push the transmission back anymore. I mean, it's stock location, and I'm not trying to throw a drive shaft off. So, and when I set these motor mounts with no oil pan, because I wasn't sure about the oil pan yet, I set these motor mounts. I believe I had it at a 3-degree engine angle, and it was level side to side. So I'm going to cut that here. So right here, if you notice this is the power steering line. Let me show you here. It wasn't necessarily hitting it. I mean, the marks from when I drop it down all the way, it would touch it. But, I mean, it was only giving it like this much space. So, if I'm going to notch this, might as well go all the way to where the power steering line is, right? Because if you look on the Durango pan, the Durango 5.9 360 pan, the original motor, it had the angle cut on the pan like this. It also had this kind of flattened edge right there like this. If you look at the motor, the old oil pan, it was kind of like this. It was flattened, right? I think I still have that bottom cut. I was searching for some stuff. Got a big mess back here. So I think I have my old pan somewhere. But this is where I'm kind of storing everything until I'm ready to put it on. I can't find it. It's somewhere back here. Already. Anyway, so that's kind of what it did. It had a notch. It didn't go this far, but it had a notch here and a here. Small one, but let's cut it up. They said they'll put it back together. I don't know. Maybe this will be the new design for it, you know? Because to me, I feel like if you're going to do something like this, if you're going to design something like this for these builds, you should be able to fit, right? You shouldn't have to cut a crazy amount of things. You know, I know this is kind of a long video on this, but so if they haven't, I can only assume that they haven't R&R'd this yet, you know what I mean? So if I can send them this, they can design it, right? So you're gonna lose some capacity, right? But if you come on this passenger side, you have tons of space on this side. Probably 10 to maybe 12 inches. So you can, right above the drain plug, right below it, you can add another 2 inches out, or I mean another inch out, to make up the capacity that you're losing here easily. And then the pickup tube is here, and it goes like that, and it comes across. I don't think it's going to hit this. So when I take this off, I'm not cutting it on the block because I don't want metals to go in there. I'm just drawing my lines. I'll take it off. All right, when I take it off, I'm going to cover it up with a stock pan, a clean stock pan, so nothing gets in this motor. And then what I'll do is I'll put this one back on. I'll tape it closed, so obviously no dirt gets in the engine. And then I'll go and test fit it and see how it works. And then I can take pictures and send it to them, and they'll do that. So driver's side, passenger side, we can add more volume here. I mean, more capacity here. I think they said this is a 6 or a 7 quart. But look, even if you take this off and you lose a, I don't even think that's going to be a quart. I mean, you may lose like a half a quart. You can easily put something else on here. If you look at some of their other off-road pans, they have really wide sides. So it's something they can do pretty easily. You know, they don't even have to, they can just do it from here to, you know, here. They can just cut out a box and stick it in and add the capacity easily. But I don't know how they make them and how they get these bevels in here. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish drawing up my lines, take it out, and then I'll show you the video after I get it cut. And but first I gotta take it off and make sure that this pickup tube that goes along here, and then it goes boom, and it sets somewhere in the middle. So I hope this doesn't mess with it too much. So here's the notch out. So I just did the width of this, lined it up, the width of this here to here, here to here. So here, up, across, down, and here. So if I can get this whole thing out in one piece, that'd be nice. So here's the butchered Milodon pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape this up so that when we're putting it in, there isn't nothing gonna fall inside my engine. I deburred it, cleaned it out, alcohol, air hose, everything to get whatever I can out of it so nothing falls into the engine. So I'm gonna tape this up, and then I'm gonna put it back on the motor that I have covered up and test fit it. All right, so see it notches out right here, it clears here. Got stuff in my here. When these fins come back, that should clear. It seems like clearance, it's a little tight here, right? But I don't know, I can't see any scope. Huh? Yeah. And then as you see up in there, it's not hitting. It's gonna clear. It'll clear here. Enough movement for the axle, because that's gonna be angled off. And a notch for here. Wait. Okay, so just need to adjust a little bit. Yeah, and we'll get everything in. It looks like it's gonna clear perfectly. All right, so it's time to take it back out, send the pan off. All right, guys, so the new design, the Milodon pan for the 4x4 swap. Here's that part you take out for the diff. This part is for the clearance of the diff here. Here is brake lines and that. So they sent it to me. We don't know the capacity yet, so I have to measure the capacity and test the welds, I guess, because this is the first of these pans for the, what is it, 98 to 03, 04 Dakota Durango Hemi swap 4-wheel drive, 4x4. 2-wheel drive, you'll have this corner here, fits fine. And you'll have this piece here. So I worked with them to mock it up, and there it is. That's the cuts, and that's it. And I'm using their suggested dipstick. So what I forgot to do is stick the dipstick in first to measure how much, you know, fluid gets up to the tip of that, so I know if I'm running low, that is like, well, I don't know, say 3 quarts, 2 quarts, whatever, right? So right now there's a lot of water in there because I over poured it to test all these welds to make sure they don't leak. But there's clips of other videos I will post on at 5 So this is normally, this is normally a 6-quart capacity. So when I talked to Milodon, asked them how to test the capacity, because they didn't get a chance to, because they're trying to rush it to me. Got it back from platers and they rushed it to me to get it back. They had said to fill it up past the baffle part here about 1/4 inch. So 5.5. Took it about a little bit because it slopes, so it slopes up, right? So, and you'll see in the videos, but yeah, it comes up just a little bit above right there where it slopes up. So I figured that you probably be safe 5.5, 5 3/4, but they'll come up with their own capacity, but they just didn't have it measured yet. But right now I just got it overfilled. I'm gonna test to make sure there's no leaks, okay? And I don't see any at all. But now what I'm gonna do is empty it out. Like I should have done in the original, is had the dipstick in there to measure. All I know is full will be right at the edge. I can just mark the edge. And then I know that at the tip would be, I don't know, I'd probably say 3/4 of where that tip is filled. You'll have 3/4 of oil in it, maybe 2, I don't know, but you know, I'll mark it, and maybe I'll give you guys, so you guys don't have to measure this. I'll say at the tip, if you guys use the same exact dipstick they offer, which is this one here, okay. You know, it's flexible, not super flexible, but you know, it's supposed to work with open headers, but I think it'll work with the truck manifolds. But anyway, if you're using that dipstick, I'll go ahead and give you a tutorial, like another video on the tip of it is at how many quarts, and then obviously you'll have the very top part of it here will be, I guess you can say full, right? I don't know. There really is no other way to say, hey, full, but I'll give you that. At least the sump is full. Okay, so measuring the capacity, or based off the measurement off of this dipstick they give you from Milodon. Okay, I'll show it again. So that's the part number 22040. So what I measured here is, so at the tip, when the water hit the tip of that was 2.5 quarts. Okay, so where the water is now, I don't know if you can see my black dot I used, the Sharpie, that is 3 quarts. And then I marked it way up there in the beginning. That is, I guess you could say, full capacity. That'll probably be like, since this holds 5.5 quarts, that'll probably be about 5 quarts, maybe 5.5. I mean, 5 quarts or 4.5 quarts of sump, I guess. I guess we can measure that too, right? Let's measure that real quick. Here, let me fill this up. So 2 cups is, so I can get you guys. So 2 cups. So 2 cups is 1/2 quart. Okay. So right now there's 3 quarts in there. And so I'm just filling this up and pour it. This is gonna be, I can get this whole thing in there. This will be 4 quarts. So I'm assuming I can get, so 4 quarts. This is going to be the full mark on that. And then you'll have, which is just the sump, and then you'll have another 1.5 quarts in in the rest of the pan. That'll be up and over. So you'll know that full will be 4 quarts. Second dot will be 3 quarts. The tip will be 2.5. That's how I'm measuring it. So, and then I'm going to take it out where my marks are. I'm going to take a saw. I'm going to put a little groove in it, a little gouge, because obviously the ink isn't going to stay there. So I'm going to gouge it up. So I know the first gouge is 3 quarts. Second gouge up there will be full, will be 4 quarts. So at least you kind of know, well, do I even got 4 quarts? Okay, see where I nicked it? 3 quarts, 4 quarts. I just took my die grinder and cutter. This little dipstick right here is actually stronger metal than I thought. The little cutter wasn't doing it. So I just went outside, just nicked it with my little die grinder, a little cutter. And so 3, 4 quarts, and then the tip is 2.5. That's how I measured it. And you guys can, if you get this pan, just know that, let's see. Hold on, I'm gonna measure the distance from the tip to the 3 and then to the 4. So you guys can just, if you buy this thing, you just measure it and mark it and then cut it and then nick it. All right, so if you guys measure from the tip, it's gonna be what, 11/16 or maybe 3/4 of an inch, somewhere around there will be your 3 quart mark. And then you got over here 2 5/8. Got 2 5/8, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, 2 5/8 ish, you know, depending, I guess, whatever angle you want to look at from the camera. But look at it in person, you can go 5/8 and that'll be 4 quarts. So go 3/4 or 11/16 and then 2 5/8 from the tip. 3 quarts, 4 quarts, and the tip is 2.5, and the tip is 2.5 quarts. So at least you know in a range of where you're at. All right, so I test dipped it, and so with that 4 quarts in there, it goes right at the end. If you see that, put this down. If you see where that flat spot ends, okay, that's where the water leaves its trail mark. I kind of wiped it off a little bit, but so I mean, from there to there, that's here to here is inside the nut itself. So, but you know, that because it kind of goes up inside where the fastener goes into, so there's water up in there. So you know that if you're in between here and here, you got that 4 quarts, and if you start getting lower than this line, then you know that. Okay guys, here's a Milodon pan where they cut out for the front diff. They have this right here is for the diff clearance, and then this part right here will be more for the brake lines. All right, just when you're torquing them down, I know people say that Milodons, some people complain about Milodons leaking, and other people say they just have no problems at all. But just when you're going through your patterns of torquing down, go through it like 4 times, because wherever you start, this is what I noticed when I took it off. Like, even though I went through the pattern what 2 or 3 times the original time, these ones in the middle were still a little bit looser than the ones on the edge. So just make sure that you get them all, go through it like 4 times, and especially like these through here. Anyway, there goes dipstick. I'm going to use that 4 dipstick that they have tomorrow, putting it in, and so we'll see. Okay, so the conclusion to this pan is, and you saw the writing on the end of the video, yes, use RTV between the windage tray and the block, RTV between the windage tray and the pan, okay, because it will leak. Suggestion of Milodon themselves. And also, and the reason is because the stock pans, they're cast aluminum, most of them, or harder metal. So when you put them down, they don't have any flex to them. Milodon's is a little thinner metal, so they have flex, and so it's not going to completely seal. So that. Other part too is check for leaks in the welds. Okay, so fill it up with water, let it sit overnight or something, see if anything seeps in, because if it does, you're not going to want to take this apart, because you're not going to notice it right away. So you're going to have to, then it'll be easier for you to just send it off that way. I'm going to tell you another thing too is fixing a leak. When the engine's already installed and you're not going to notice these leaks until later, it is extremely difficult to get the oil pan out. Because I had to do this. So the experiences I already had to do this. So I had to take the front differential down. I had to take the steering rack down. And then I still couldn't even get the pan out because of the pickup tube, the initial bend, like that part right there wouldn't allow the pan to come. So you're probably going to have to just loosen the motor mounts and raise the engine up a little bit. And that's probably going to be the best way. Just so you understand, is you don't want to have to do any of that to fix the leaks. RTV everything. Okay. Check for leaks before it is. Other than that, so far, it's no leaks so far that I've checked. But that's going to be it. Now, if it does leak, it's going to be really hard to get off because of the RTV. But anyway, do that. And final thoughts, the freaking car runs awesome.